all over this country as a result of Obamacare.
Yeah, that's the problem, the unintended consequence of a bunch of super smart people who are expected to understand every single possible 330 American people and the ins and outs of their lives, and to take over decision making for them and dictate to them what is best, is that, well, in their phraseology, unfortunately, some eggs need to get broken when you make omelets. On the other hand, Representative Loomis's husband, through the various different hurdles and pains in the ass of the Obamacare monstrosity, this was actually something that, I don't know, possibly could have been avoided.
Well, I think so. And, in on one sense, you can call it a glitch. I mean, the whole glitch talk started with the spectacular failure of the rollout of the healthcare.gov site, the federal Obamacare site. But one might call this a glitch as well. They were covered. They were told multiple times they weren't. And as a result, her husband decided not to pay for a physician advised test. And again, like I've said, in fact, at the end of the post, when I just said a couple of seconds ago, this is going on all over the country. I have a link there where folks can go and see example after example of when this has happened. Yet we haven't. Harry Reid, remember Harry Reid, Michael, standing on the floor of the Senate with a straight face, saying every horror story, and he called them horror stories that you've heard, every one of them, he said, are false. They're made up.
Yeah, the problem is when a handful of folks make decisions for the collective. Those aren't individual people pursuing their own best ends for them as a result of a better understanding of their situation than anybody else. They're decisions on the mean and the margin and the majority, and by definition, there are huge, big cracks that people are going to fall through. It's like oh gosh, I don't even know if IJR's put anything up about it. The number of primary care physicians that are involved in Obamacare is far lower than expected, and
Well,
there's a
they're dropping like flies as we speak.
right, and there's a massive shortage. So people, are unable to get the kind of care that they would like. Yet, when you hear the administration talking about things, what they're talking about is the amount of people that are covered.
Right.
Well, the coverage, that whole discussion between coverage and care reminds me of that Seinfeld where Jerry shows up at the rental car desk, and he's pointing out the distinction between taking the reservation and actually keeping the reservation.
I've probably seen 10 Seinfeld episodes in my life, but
Oh, okay. Well, it's so perfect because Jerry goes up to it, and they confirm that they took the reservation, but they have no cars. And Jerry's like, "Oh, well, you can take the reservation, but it's really kind of meaningless without you making a reservation, because yes, you show that I've got a reservation, I have a reservation. The thing is I don't have a car."
that's exactly right. And
And I mean, it's putting a funny point on it. And in the context, I suppose, of Representative Loomis, there's no way to put a funny point on it.
I mean, it literally was a life and death situation. And by the way, speaking of life, your post, how students react to college president saying all lives matter, priceless, man.
Oh my gosh, can you even believe this story?
Sadly, yes. But
Um,
yeah.
Yeah, so here's the deal. Again, up on ijreview.com, the title of the article is How Students React to College President Saying All Lives Matter Should Have People Scratching Their Heads. So here's what happened. The hashtag Black Lives Matter has been trending on Twitter for a while. But there was a pushback against that. That people were saying, no, it's not an Black Lives Matter. It's an all lives matter, meaning all human beings matter, not just the black ones. Well, so what happened is the president of Smith College I think it's in Massachusetts.
I don't know.
Where's Smith? Whatever, doesn't matter. Anyway, so Smith College, the president sent out an email uh, with the phrase "All Lives Matter." Okay, so she was talking about the struggle and the hurt the Smith community has experienced following the non-indictment officer Wilson, and blah 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 blah. And all these students immediately went to Twitter, chastising the president of the school, blaming her skin color for her lack of understanding. On Twitter, it was, do not send out an email saying all lives matter. This isn't about everyone. This is about black people, things like this. So
Well,
then,
and hang on here for a second, Sophia. That all, well, Black Lives Matter should say Black Lives Matter unless they're killed by other blacks in the streets of Chicago. See that you can't add enough hypocrisy and ridiculousness to this tweet and this whole notion.
no, absolutely right. All black lives matter, but especially those that enforce a particular political narrative, whether or not it's based on any sort of reality. That
Right. Right.
that's the longer hashtag. Well, so what happens is the president then sent out an email apologizing. She led a vigil
Right.
at the school. The
Just
email, and then
shoot me now.
right. She said as part of her apology, both in a letter and an email to students, as well as on Twitter itself, that she apologized. She was not aware that the phrase "All Lives Matter" was being used on social media to counter the Black Lives Matter movement, which I guess it is. The Black Lives Matter is a movement, and if you step in, especially on a college campus, if you step in to counter Black Lives Matter with a more generic, watered down "All Lives Matter," you can expect, especially if you're running a bastion of leftist thought, Smith College, you can expect your head to be handed to you.
There's no question. Listen, I mean, excuse me, you are far more into Twitter than I am, but we both know anything you put up on Twitter, regardless of the political bent, gonna be hammered by the other side.
Instantly. In fact,
Instant.
Twitter is the only place where the people that loathe you pay more attention to every single thing you do than those who are fans.
It, it's almost like it reminds me. This has popped into my brain. When you have people like Sophia and others that on Twitter who, once all lives matter pops up. Oh, good. It's like the whole thing in Animal Farm. Where the pigs put up first on the side of the barn, all animals are equal, and then they ultimately add, except some are more equal than others. And that, I mean, I know hopefully most of the people who got just completely went off on all lives matter don't think that Black Lives Matter more, but it's like it just reminds me of that liberal group speak stuff that just drives me nuts.
Oh my gosh, it absolutely drives me nuts at all. And the president, as far as I'm aware, and see if there are any pictures here of Smith College. Um, are there white people that go there?
I have no idea. I mean, I think I've heard of it, but I would guess.
Yeah, I mean it's in New England, so
Right.
no question about it, right?
Right. Right.
All right, so what else you got for us? We got 6 minutes left, man.
Um, we don't have time to get to which happens to us every day. I was enlightened, I guess is the word, by the noted legal expert Charlie Rangel about something.
Oh my God. Okay.
Uh,
Please.
so see, this is why I pay attention to these people. Whether it's well, again, world-renowned climatologist Bette Midler, or anybody like this who knows, they just are so far above us. But anyway, and this is relative to what we're talking about here. This is a tweet a couple of days ago. Chad Pergram has apparently heard this firsthand. But Charlie Rangel, and you all know who Charlie is, this is what Charlie said. It is impossible that someone can die and no one is indicted. This is hashtag Eric Garner, by the way. Impossible, Charlie says, that someone can die and no one is indicted, Michael.
How is that impossible?
Dude, we're talking about Charlie Rangel.
Seeing everything through an unbelievably thick, racially tinged lens.
And an unbelievably thick brain, dude. Just, and you know, this is, I mean, listen, Sharpton, that ilk, they probably believe the same thing. Well, as it relates to black dust. But I believe Charlie, listen, I mean, Charlie engages and has for decades in his fair share of propaganda. Dude, I think he really believes this. I think he just doesn't understand. He doesn't understand the whole deal.
You know, when you say he doesn't understand the whole deal, that's an incredibly wide swath of.
Well, I mean, the whole deal as it relates to what he's talking about here. Yeah. Just, you know, another example is homicide. If you tell Al Sharpton that anyone, Sharpton, a person of color, died via homicide, he would immediately think that that was murder, and that person, you know, he would know no facts, just as he doesn't and never has as it relates to Darren Wilson, because of the homicide word, that's murder, and that person should be tried and convicted. And the definition of homicide is someone dies as a result of an action by someone else. It can be completely accidental. It can be completely self-defense. Homicide does not connote murder. But this is why I'm saying, you know, these people, there's an agenda, and they make stuff up as they go along to fit the narrative.
Right, exactly. Now, Mike, we haven't actually talked about this in this kind of detail. Obviously, you've followed this thing. What's your conclusion on that non-indictment in that particular case?
In Ferguson?
No, Garner.
You know, as I've said, you know, I've argued with someone on Facebook about this, a liberal friend of mine. That video was extremely troubling to me. There probably should have been one. And who did I disagree with? A friend of ours, Soup. This thing, I disagreed with Soup as it relates to Ferguson. There should not have been one. I think that would have just furthered the problem. I believe in the Eric Garner situation. Looking at that video, I believe he should have been indicted, and this thing should play out openly in court.
Yeah, that from what I could see, and again, just like in Ferguson, I was not in the grand jury, but it seemed to be very different to me.
There's just no question. And unlike Ferguson, where I think it was incontrovertible proof, at least a majority of it, eyewitnesses, autopsy, the whole bit, that would have been an injustice to indict Darren Wilson. On the other hand, when you look at this, you know, Sean Hannity argues about whether it's a chokehold or not, or you're just going for the carotid arteries. You know, screw Sean Hannity here. I'm sorry, but the guy's a political hack. But he had him around the throat. You know, he said, he being Garner, 11 times, I can't breathe. He had him on the ground in that. There was no attempt to pay attention to him, let alone, you know, try to save a guy who was in distress. Yeah, I think there should have been an indictment here.
Now, have they released the information for this particular case?
No.
Like they did in Ferguson?
No, and what they did in Ferguson is an anomaly because there needs be no, and there generally is not, release of stuff, if you will, from a grand jury.
Interesting. All right, well, Mike, we have just come to the end of yet another broadcast day. According to my count, we've got 4 more articles that we didn't cut. Folks, you have been listening to The Right Mics with Mike Miller and Michael Hausum. You can follow us on Twitter at The Right Mics. Go to our blog after the show. Also, we will be back in 22 and
This show is produced by IJReview.com.